It's probably not an exaggeration to say most residents of London, Ontario, given a map of the city, couldn't put their finger on a community called Glen Cairn. Perhaps that's understandable. You see, Glen Cairn doesn't have national recognition like Wortley Village, or a welcoming sign like Byron, or fancy street signs like Old East Village. Nor does Glen Cairn have the tall buildings of downtown, or the fancy new community centre of Stony Brook, or the university like Old North, or big shopping centres like White Oaks or Masonville. But Glen Cairn does have something many communities in London don't have: a realistic sense of itself and genuine pride of place, an unassuming neighbourliness, and an authentic, if sometimes boisterous, community spirit. Peaceful, isn't it? And beautiful. And probably so much bigger than you imagined when you only see it from the ground. Which makes it all the harder to appreciate this magnificent space. Surely the most prized of this community's environmental treasures was once the City of London's waste disposal site. A swatch of greenery that runs from north of Thompson Road almost all the way to Commissioners. Acres of grass and trees, playgrounds and sports facilities, pathways and quiet spaces. The story of the revitalization of this park embodies all the characteristics of Glen Cairn's spirit itself. The ability to embrace all walks of life and shades of color. The resourcefulness to try this and share that. A willingness to pitch in when others need a hand. And an ability to see the best in things even if, once upon a time, they were nothing more than a garbage dump for a city that too often ignores this community. Growing up, Barb Schust-Lawrence remembers when even finding the trash was fun. As a young girl, this was her neighborhood, just opposite the park. Her family was among large groups of immigrants from Europe looking to settle here. The area around the dump was an attraction. Her father built this house on Emerson Avenue in the late 1950s, and after that, another one nearby on Thompson Road.
For many years it was no longer a dump, but the land was quite inexpensive, and that was an opportunity for my parents to buy some land and be able to build their own house. So I remember being in the backyard digging up Tamblyn bottles and old crockery and things like that. So I think it was probably because the land was cheap.
Not a lot had changed by the second decade of this century. The neighborhood had built out, improvement of the park hadn't kept pace.
So there hadn't really been anything done since about 1998 at that point, so a good 15 to 20 years, and really it was just a very small, narrow, meandering gravel path going through the park that was certainly not accessible and probably difficult for some people to walk on. There were some naturalized areas and grass, of course, but otherwise it was just a very small playground in the one spot on Sherrill Street, and that was it. There's nothing else at all going on in the park, not even a bench to sit down on.
The park didn't get a lot better until community spirit got involved. And that first came in the form of a group of people whose association with Glen Cairn was that it was the place where they worked.
And once a month we would get together just to encourage each other. And out of that we decided maybe there's something more that we could do together as agencies, at which point we also invited other members from the community and other businesses to come alongside and join with us.
From that formed the Glen Cairn Community Partners, but they needed something to do. And then they heard about a new City of London program that allowed local groups to adopt a park.
There was a long forgotten park in this neighborhood that only dog walkers used anymore. In fact, many people who lived in Glen Cairn didn't even know the park existed because it's well hidden. And so we got behind that program, and that's how we started this. And over the years, we've planted hundreds of trees, and we've enthused and connected with the people that live here, and that's why it's turned into a celebration.
The first community project was a park cleanup and tree planting, a tradition that now continues each spring and fall as the spirit of Glen Cairn continues to grow. The City of London got involved too, investing more than $200,000 over the past 3 years in benches and trails, playground equipment, and a basketball court. So does that mean the park is complete?
Parks are never complete. There's always opportunity to do more. I anticipate with the growth and continuing community involvement of the Glen Cairn partners that we will be doing more in the park in the future.
Being a former landfill does limit future options for the park. The community partners, on the other hand, are expanding opportunities through a connection with the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority that has led to projects such as community rain gardens, this one at Chalmers Presbyterian Church installed by volunteers.
We really wanted to get into an urban setting and reach people that we've never reached before, like new Canadians, older neighborhoods and transitioning neighborhoods. So Glen Cairn popped up as one of those communities that has everything we wanted to target.
I would say Glen Cairn is a community of untapped potential, of untapped resources. I've heard of things that have bypassed Glen Cairn. I've heard of community members share of things that they felt overlooked by, but yet there is so much green space, there's a river, there's so much community space available that we can enjoy and actually make the most of.
While rejuvenation of the park gave a boost to Glen Cairn's community spirit, that's not where it started. In fact, a strong sense of community has long been a fact of life in Glen Cairn, embodied in the volunteer spirit of many of its residents. People like Danielle Muder, wife and mother of two, who among other things runs a weekly lunch program at St. Sebastian Catholic School.
It started off with one class. We tried it out to see how it would work, and I went into that class first thing in the morning, and we had all the students, the whole class, participate, put in beans. The first soup we did was like a taco soup with hamburger meat, and it was a big hit. And then I had other classrooms wanting to do it. These aren't kids that I know really well, but they'd be like, oh, there's Mrs. Muder. So then they, and they come and they tell me how good it is, and I was like, oh, okay. It makes you feel good, like when you get thanks like that. I volunteer because, I think it's important to show your kids. I have 2 kids, so I think it's important to show your kids that you can do something and not get paid for it. Like, you shouldn't always do something looking for something back. I think there's a shortage of volunteers everywhere. I think there are lots of people that would like to do it, they just don't, they just think it's too time consuming, and really it's not. I got to go eat dinner with the mayor, my kids really like that. I think that's pretty cool.
People like Bob Hutton, a retired businessman with a long-time interest in cooking, who got asked to help at the Youth for Christ on Adelaide Street.
Somehow I got involved here, and they needed some work done to build some ramps for their skateboard park. So I volunteered to help that, and then a couple weeks later they found a couple of shelves they needed built, and a couple of weeks later they needed a volunteer to watch the kids in the evening. once they get a hold of you here, they really put you to work, but I really enjoyed it. Chinese cooking is just sort of a hobby of mine, along with building model boats. This group here, there's about 15 kids that are on a day camp this week, and they're learning different types of cooking. So I volunteered to make some sushi for them today and show them how to do it. Why do I volunteer? It's just something I feel two things. I guess I'd say I'm maybe selfish because there's something for me to look forward to every day and I enjoy doing it. And it's something I've always done all my life.
People like Diane and John Hamill, who have made helping seniors the focus of their volunteer efforts. They are the organizers of weekly euchre sessions and monthly lunch and learn gatherings.
Diane was volunteering with the seniors, so when she needed help here and there, I came and helped, and then it just evolved from there. Since they're able to hear me at this event, I also kind of moderate or MC the events because they can hear me. And I never had a problem talking in front of a group before, so that's one reason why I kind of get to do it. I was never shy doing that. I like volunteering, actually. It's always good to kind of give back, and that's one good thing that you're able to do when you do volunteer. So I guess that'd be the best way to put it.
Because I love it. And it gets me away from John. No. I like knowing that I make a difference in the seniors' life. Without me, they would be in their homes with nothing to do, and this gets them out of their house, even if it's for an hour a day or 2 or 3 hours a day. It gets them away from their house, and I know how much my mother enjoys playing her cards, so I think of her when I do my euchre.
People like Teresa DeJong, who offered her skills at making clothes to the Resource Center for a class they call So Easy.
I've pretty much done some type of volunteering all my life. I arrived here at the center because it is my local community center. I live in the neighborhood, and I thought if I'm going to volunteer, then I think I should do something for my own neighborhood. I like meeting people and sharing a common interest. It just makes the time fly by. A 3-hour class feels like 10 minutes. I like it that I've met people in my own community. When you teach something that you love, that makes it so much easier. I like teaching adults. The best part here is when you see someone go from being intimidated by the sewing machine to taking that, getting their aha moment, and then coming back some week showing me something that they made at home. That feels so good to see them take it on and run with it.
People like music director Stephen Richards and musician Jeff Holbrow, who volunteer after school hours to organize the fledgling Glen Cairn Community Choir, which meets at C.C. Carruthers Public School.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm good. Well, you know, I do love them, but... So where are we going? Steve and I both knew each other as musicians, and we got talking, and I said I'd like to do something together with you. What do you think? And he came up with the idea of a community choir.
Yeah, and the Glen Cairn Community Resource Center had expressed an interest in wanting to do something with us, and it just kind of came together that that's what we were going to try as a project for the community.
And we looked at it as we want to bring the community together, and the way to do that is to bring their kids. So come and sing with your kids. You don't have to bring a child, but that's sort of how it started. That's how we got it going.
It's a fun evening. I almost wish you could sort of bottle the feeling that's in the room on Thursday nights. everybody's just come out to have a good time and sing, make music together.
And they're surprised, I think, when they actually hear themselves sing, because they're like, wow, we sound pretty good.
The choir's efforts came together in a performance at C.C. Carruthers Spring Assembly. Not everyone gets applause, but there are many, many others who willingly work to make Glen Cairn a better place. People like Joy Buys, who organizes the community clothing cupboard at Compass Community Church. People like Joyce Kilburn, who helps run the Share and Care food program at Chalmers Presbyterian Church. And young people like Tarek Keifel, who is the champion volunteer for programs offered by the Glen Cairn Community Resource Centre. The Community Resource Centre, in fact, probably soaks up more volunteer hours than any other organization, and therefore is particularly mindful of who does what.
The spirit of volunteers here, I think people are very possessive of their area as well. And I think that spirit is growing. I mean, they're bubbly, they're fun, they're hard workers, and they're working hard for their community. And the more we get to know more people in the community, the more we see how much volunteering is done that people don't even consider volunteering.
How do you make slime? Ask the kids who attended March Break Camp run by the Glen Cairn Community Resource Centre, and they'll say it's quite easy. Mix the appropriate parts of Elmer's glue, water, color, and borax, and stir. In a real sense, the Resource Centre is Glen Cairn's Spirit Centre, which perhaps isn't that surprising for an organization with the word community as its middle name. For more than 30 years, it has offered programs and support to children, parents, and seniors, with the sole purpose of building a healthy, vibrant, safe community while having fun doing so.
Our mandate is to encourage individuals, families, and community residents to come together, connect, just get together and talk about what they'd like to see for the community, what's best for their community, how they, where they see their community in 5 years, 10 years, and how they can make change.
And how exactly does creating slime help achieve these goals?
So a lot of the programs that we offer here at the center try to encompass healthy eating, healthy physical activity, learning social skills and life skills, and all those important things to grow and be productive in society and adults.
Truth to tell, there's a lot of laughter and noise attached to almost all the Resource Center's programs. Real spirit.
We're building, we're growing. I think we're reaching our tipping point now where we're finally going to get to be the resource center we want to be, that in the last 5 years we've worked to become.
In 2012, the Resource Centre moved from its original central location in the strip mall on King Edward Avenue. It wasn't a popular decision, but it was necessary.
The place was like a rabbit warren, so we actually had 5 units that were interconnected, not very in a very well planned way. It was not built as a resource center, it was built as many different retail units. So it really wasn't a space that was very, very useful. We made it useful, but it wasn't built for our design. Really, really old, and the rent was quite substantial.
So the organization found a home of its own on the edge of Glen Cairn in a former industrial building on Adelaide Street South. Sean Hunter, the center's program manager, shows plans for a major renovation to the new building that will include a kitchen and large meeting space, if and when they can raise the money.
We're kind of shifting focus to address more food security issues, and that's sort of the dream for the Resource Centre that we'd like to see here, to draw more folks from the community here to learn skills and to build community from here.
Meantime, the Community Resource Centre has plenty of additional space in various partnered facilities across Glen Cairn to offer a wealth of programs. I Cook, for example, held at Compass Community Church.
I Cook is always a lot of fun. We get to see the little guys starting to learn cooking basics. So they're 5 years old, obviously. They're not cooking. They think they're cooking. We let them do a lot of measuring and stirring. Can you help, and can we help you learn those skills? That's one of the intentions, as well as just ensuring that everyone gets a good meal for that day. Sometimes we see kids in our programs that haven't had a heck of a lot of food that day, and so we try and make sure they get as much as they can, seconds if possible, take some home if they can.
In a movie, like that kind of boy when got it.
So what we did today is instead we're using
There are cooking experiences for adults too, a summer program called Pop-Up Cooking. On this day, a volunteer chef, Marlene Coward, is running the show.
So pop-up cooking is designed to pop up in different areas of the community. We're hoping to touch people that we haven't touched before. One of the roles that we play here in the community is building community. And one of the easiest ways to build community is through food. It's also one of the greatest needs here in the community. Almost all of our programs have some form of a food element, whether it's healthy snacks or healthy teaching of nutrition and cooking, or just a meeting together to grow in your garden or any of those kind of things.
There's also an educational fun side to many programs at the Resource Centre. They call this program Get Motivated, an object lesson in overcoming obstacles to success.
One of the trips is we took them rock climbing. So we had a lot of kids that started that day very fearful.
Do you think we're gonna go? We're gonna try and
most of the kids actually made it to the top at the end of the day. It was just great to see that kind of growth that some of them kind of took. So it's the little moments like that that it's just so rewarding.
Right next door to the Resource Centre is the London Youth for Christ, which offers a variety of educational and recreational programs for young people. Our tour starts at Cafe Connect, just inside.
We run different programs that are focused around skill development in our cafe, in our collective kitchen, as well running recreational activities in our gym or our indoor portable skate park. So various activities to keep youth actively engaged with each other and with community members. The cafe came as a result of young people saying they wanted a space where they could just simply hang out and loiter and not feel that they were in the way. And so we wanted to create a community space where it was safe and would also empower them for those relationships. So currently in our cafe, we have various programs every day after school. We provide community youth meals for the teens in the community. We also have a program called Circles from Bridges Out of Poverty, which supports a lot of the Glen Cairn families that are looking to step out of poverty. And it's where people who aren't in poverty come alongside those in poverty and journey together. We did a youth survey of some of the needs that youth said they had in the Glen Cairn area. And one of those needs was having an indoor skate park during the winter months when they couldn't skate outside. There weren't a lot of community spaces where young people could gather, resulting in them leaving Glen Cairn to go to other places for recreational activities or just to hang out at potentially White Oaks Mall, which isn't in our neighborhood at all. We really wanted to create a space that young people would call their own and that they would find community together.
The City of London also offers programs in Glen Cairn, particularly in the summertime. One example is the Kids Camp, which uses the swimming pool and adjacent park space. As a youngster, Sarah Frank came to camp in Glen Cairn. In the summer of 2017, she was the camp coordinator.
So I started coming here probably when I was 7 or 8. I used to always come to this day camp summer after summer, and I loved my time here. So when I got old enough to have a job, I became a counselor with the City of London. Decided I wanted to be a coordinator, and I asked to be placed at this site since I love the area, the community, and it's really great coming back year after year. Best thing about summer camp is the stories you get. Always going home and having something hilarious that some kid said to you. And getting to see them make those bonds with people too, even with the counselors, and seeing that they really trust them is great to see as well.
City of London programs also embrace seniors. About 12% of Glen Cairn's population is older than 65, a lower percentage of the population than in London as a whole, but more likely to live in their own home. In 2009, Glen Cairn was selected for this special study.
Glen Cairn, in fact, was the first neighborhood that we approached to, first of all, find out their needs, and then secondly, try and work with volunteers and residents in Glen Cairn to address some of those needs and try and do some community development. Primarily, the thing that kept percolating to the top was the need for information. Many people, again, are still in their own homes. As they age, they might not be as computer savvy or as able to find out information, and so that really was one of the main areas that, you know, we need to know what is out there. They felt isolated.
Out of the study have come a number of initiatives, such as exercise programs, monthly luncheons, weekly card games, and outings.
Fitness and social seems to be the big seller here in the Glen Cairn area. They really enjoy being active, and they like to chat with each other and do a couple programs. So we do have an active card program and things like that here as well. The yoga program is also very popular. So people just like to be active in this community and hang out with their friends or meet new people.
Okay, who's going to stop?
Although its name says Pond Mills, the public library branch on Commissioners is a popular gathering spot for Glen Cairn residents.
Based on geography, there really isn't kind of a natural community center in the Glen Cairn area. There's no kind of one, I guess, I don't know, like a pivotal intersection where everything gathers. And, you know, so places like the library and the Glen Cairn Community Center have sort of become the kind of anchors in the neighborhood, and you know, people come into this library just on a day-to-day basis just to find information, you know, just to see what's going on in the neighborhood, partly as a social thing to communicate with their neighbors or to see the library staff. There's a lot of staff here who've been here a while and are really kind of, you know, pivotal parts of the neighborhood and parts of, I think, people's lives in the community as well. So, you know, coming from that perspective, over and above the library services that we offer, I think we just play a great kind of social and informational role to the people in Glen Cairn.
A meeting spot on a much smaller scale is the front reception area of the Community Resource Centre, which has been renamed Glen Hortons. As you might expect, therein lies a story.
There was a young man that used to come in to see me all the time, and he would just dash into the front door and stop and get himself a coffee, and now he would dash out of the front door again. Finally one day I said, enough is enough. So when he came in, I says, hello. I said, I'm glad you're enjoying our coffee. Would you like to, you know, have a conversation? He opened up very easily, and he said that he was on his way to a job interview, but he knew that he was welcome to come in here and get a cup of coffee because it was cold.
And slowly, Kathy and I joked about it, and we named it Glen Hortons. It was a laugh, and ever since then, it became that Glen Hortons. Of course, Glen Cairn, thanks for that, because it does help me and in general, everyone who visits Glen Cairn can count on a cup of coffee, cup of water, or a cup of tea.
It's about building and connecting and bringing the community together, and I think that's how it's done.
Like most communities in London, the residents of Glen Cairn come in all shapes and sizes, all colors and backgrounds. But most people who live here seem united, spirited even, about one thing. Glen Cairn is a nice place in which to live, to buy a house, to raise a family, to get old in, and they love it. People like Gary Lowe, who wanted to live in Glen Cairn for years in a particular house, and when it went on the market 5 years ago, he bought it.
I think the thing that we like best about Glen Cairn is not just the location, but also the fact that it's an established neighborhood. The families that have been here for many, many years. The crime rate in this area is very, very low. And the lay of the land. Glen Cairn's a beautiful community with mature trees and shrubs, and people take care of their properties, and they're very friendly. And it's quite a tight-knit community. You know, we're not in the news a lot, which is more than likely a good thing. I don't know if I can really put my finger on why we're not as well pronounced as some other communities and neighborhoods in London, but our feeling is that it meets our needs. It's quiet, and whether we have recognition or not, it's a good thing for us. I've met a number of people on my daily walks with our dogs, and that live in different parts of of Glen Cairn, and we all compare stories, and everybody kind of comes to the conclusion that we all have the same likes about this particular neighborhood in London.
People like Carla St. Ange, she and her husband were attracted by the housing bargains.
We chose Glen Cairn. We were looking for houses in St. Thomas, wartime houses, and Glen Cairn was best bang for the buck. We got a fairly sized house, huge backyard, and reasonably priced. I love Glen Cairn. The sense of community in this neighborhood is very strong. There's always someone willing to talk at the park. We are not parishioners of the churches in this neighborhood, but we take advantage of the stuff they put on. Chalmers puts on movie nights and feeds everybody supper, and they're so welcoming and fun, really. And I'm so proud that they really have the sense of community there. The churches really open their doors.
People like Sean Hunter and his fiancée, who were also attracted by the lower housing costs and the fact that he worked in Glen Cairn.
There were two big factors that I think encouraged us to choose this location. The housing price. It was an excellent housing price. The community was great, and the house itself, I think, I guess three things were the main factors in our choice. I'm really fortunate to live and work in this community. I could ride a bike to work if I wanted to. I don't as often as I should, but I have the option of doing that, which is great. And also, where we're situated in the community is really close to what amenities are available here in this community. We have a grocery store that's nearby, local coffee shop and things like that, convenience store. So we're also close to those amenities too, which it comes in handy from time to time. I think the East of Adelaide stigma is something that's perpetuated in culture, something that's perpetuated in people's thoughts. But in living here, I don't see as much of that. I live in a neighborhood where, my neighbors get along. We have a lot of young families that have since moved into our area anyway, in particular. In my opinion, I think a strong sense of community has sort of developed in my area anyway.
People like Joy Buys, who organizes the community clothing cupboard at Compass Community Church in Glen Cairn.
I do enjoy living in Glen Cairn. I love the people here. I love the amenities that we have, although In the 24 years that I've been here, some of the recreational amenities have been taken from our community and moved to communities farther away, and that's been disappointing, and it's been difficult for us as a community to build that community core. But the people here are great, and the agencies that we work with and the staffing have been phenomenal. We're seeing more immigration, we're seeing more folks from different cultures, and I think it's important, again, that we communicate that with one another so that we can all stay on top of what the changing needs of Glen Cairn are and continue to be a community that welcomes all people.
People like Danielle Mooder, who moved to Glen Cairn with her husband from a small town in Northern Ontario 16 years ago, and loves the fact most everything is within walking distance.
There's so many neighbors that I know if there's an emergency, my kids know them, we can go to them. I run a home daycare, so even my daycare kids know a lot of my neighbors, that if there's something wrong, even they know to go to so-and-so's house, and it's good. And then the neighborhood itself is pretty good. There's some sections that aren't as nice as other sections, but that's city. I think that's how it is everywhere. We were told when we moved here that it wasn't a good neighborhood, and some people where I worked were like, oh, but then I talked to other people that used to live in this area, and they said it was great, just wait. So, you sort of feel good that, okay, didn't make a huge mistake. But we really like it here. And a lot of stuff was in walking distance. My parents would come down from up north. My mom used to love to walk my kids over to Zeller's and the Tim Hortons, Food Basics, like everything was in walking distance. So it was good because she doesn't like to drive in the city. So it was nice that she could walk and do stuff with the kids. And now they put great parks in, so it's awesome.
People like Catherine Dishke Hansel, who commutes from Glen Cairn to her job at Western University. She has lived in the neighborhood for 8 years.
It's an affordable area. It's a mature neighborhood. It wasn't under development. People who live here have lived here for a long time, and there's a great feel. I love being close to the ponds. I love being close to nature trails and a park next door. It's a community where there's not a lot of traffic. You can walk easily up and down the streets and run into your neighbors, and everybody's very friendly.
People like Catherine's husband, John, who sells real estate and says the best home buying bargains are in Glen Cairn.
Oh yeah, the Glen Cairn advantage. Typically here you can get a lot more house for your money, definitely. On average, for a two-story home, you can probably save between $100,000 and $150,000. And that's initially why we bought here. It was affordable, and we got a lot for our money. So, the way we use the community is as a home. It's our home base. It's where we kind of jump off for everything we do. For us, it's nice to be close to parks and nature. I sit on the parent council at St. Sebastian. Very engaged community, the parents and the students as well, but the parents are really involved and want to see the school do well and the students do well. It's nice to see.
And people like Peter Barnaby, pastor of Chelsea Green Community Church, who lives proudly in the neighborhood of Chelsea Green, where he also heads the new neighborhood association.
Quite honestly, it was proximity to how close we were to the Thames Valley Parkway, and how close we were to downtown, and how close we were to our own church. But most importantly was the bike paths. My wife and I love to cycle. When I'm going around most times, trying to get around the city, I'll opt to use my bicycle, and the Thames Valley Parkway is fantastic for that. I can hop on the bike paths and I can go pretty much anywhere in the city with very minimal city road driving. It's super easy, and it's a beautiful place to live. Chelsea Green and Chelsea Heights were two little distinct areas that were separate from the City of London, and they were annexed in about 1912. The people that live here in Chelsea Green, you have people that are, some of them have lived here their entire lives, some of them are living in their parents' houses, and their parents were here since the early 1900s, so a lot of people still have that perception of Chelsea Green being distinct from the rest of Glen Cairn. And it's not necessarily that it's culturally different, it's just there's a lot of people here who take a lot of pride in the historical heritage that this little corner has.
Ultimately, the spirit of any community is the sum total of the attitudes of the people who live in its neighborhoods. Across the Glen Cairn community, from the Thames River at the north to the Westminster Ponds at the south, from Adelaide east of Highbury, the prevailing attitude is almost small town, friendly and welcoming, helping and even a bit nosy at times, but in a good way.
That's what a healthy neighborhood is being proud of your community, standing up for your community, and wanting to be involved and getting together and having block parties, going to the park together, watching out over your neighbor's house when they're on holidays. That old standard of, I can go and borrow a cup of sugar. That type of thing. I think that's you can see that slowly transitioning.
You may find this hard to believe, but every spring, hundreds of elementary students in Glen Cairn have gone fishing, literally and figuratively. Now that is a fish story, as well as a perfect illustration of how attention to the environment has been evolving. That's one of the benefits of having the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority involved in community enhancement endeavors.
We want to turn people's attention to the river, not away from the river. And to do that, one of the ways is you bring that community together and do projects that are related to the Thames River or the environment in general. Very, very important. If you lose that connection with the community, nothing will happen. There will be no improvements because people just won't care. So we really need to work together collectively to care about our river and our environment.
So one way to get the community engaged is to get its school students involved. To do that, the Conservation Authority partnered an idea from British Columbia called Stream of Dreams. Work starts in late winter when hundreds of fish in half a dozen different shapes are cut out of sheets of plywood with a laser saw. Once a waterproof sealer coat has been applied, each fish gets an undercoating from students at various London secondary schools. Then, each spring for the last 4 years, students at a chosen Glen Cairn elementary school get a lesson in how to protect our environment. In particular, how improved methods of dealing with stormwater runoff can benefit animal habitat. It's all curriculum-based and designed to spark conversation.
Right down the drain. Got it. So we have pike,
After that, everyone from junior kindergarten to principal in that school is asked to paint a fish in any color or design imaginable. In 2017, the chosen school was Glen Cairn Public.
This is our silver shiner. We have our brown.
Yeah, those eyes are great.
Oh, really?
They're also big.
And finally, after the fish are dry, they are artfully stretched along the school fence, creating a virtual stream, a permanent reminder both to the school and the neighborhood surrounding it of the key environmental lesson. Marlene Hanna was principal of St. Sebastian Catholic School when it was their turn several years ago.
I think in our school they learned a lot about environmental stewardship. So how we can play a part in being responsible stewards of the environment. That was big for our students. And I think perhaps indirectly they learned a lot about community.
I've heard time and time again that people, when they walk by, puts a smile on their face, and it has spread the message to their own community that they should take care of the environment as well. So yeah, overall I'm hearing wonderful things. People are very happy about it and the sense of community that it's creating.
But wait, there's more. Again, under the auspices of the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, a number of rain gardens have been created in Glen Cairn, including 3 on residential properties. The idea is to trap rainwater on the land and use it to hydrate a perennial flower garden, rather than having it flow into a storm drain and ultimately down to the river. One of those gardens was installed at Peter Barnaby's home on Ada Street.
Anything we can do to keep the water from running right into the water, right into the river, and then overflowing its banks and then flooding our property. I think it's kind of cool to be part of a project that shows the community can do something that beyond, our neighbors or us as residents can do something that extends beyond the boundaries of our property.
A summer environmental lesson of another sort awaits Glen Cairn residents who sign up for a plot in the Glen Cairn Community Garden run by the City of London. This is John Pelon picking wild tomatoes.
What we think of as a community garden are one of the gardens that are on municipally owned land, primarily parkland, that we manage and maintain. So basically it's an opportunity for people to come together in a common space on city land to grow their own vegetables and other plants for their own personal use. In addition to that, of course, is education based around how vegetables grow, how food grows, how many resources it takes to produce a certain amount of food. Also, we have a lot of people who have spoken to me about how therapeutic it is for them. So I think a lot of individuals garden purely for that reason, almost a meditative therapy for them.
Gardening has taken another twist along the commercial strip of Adelaide Street South. Merchants were encouraged to spruce up their premises with natural color in a friendly competition called Adelaide in Bloom.
So we're really trying to kind of green up Adelaide Street a little bit and bring the businesses together in a partnership. So we're doing a Communities in Bloom project down there where it's a friendly competition amongst the businesses who can be a little bit more aesthetically pleasing in their walkways leading up to their businesses. So that's been a lot of fun.
Winner in the first year of the competition was Lovers at Work office furniture.
Glen Cairn is really trying to make this area, which can be kind of industrial or commercial, they're trying to really make it beautiful and nice. I just decided to jump in on that because there's a number of businesses along here that have been trying to just up their game a little bit with new facades and that kind of thing. And so, yeah, I'm all over that. I wanted to get in on that. It can only help a neighborhood to make it look good.
Nothing you've seen so far is meant to suggest Glen Cairn is without problems. Like most established neighbourhoods, it has many, not the least of which is neglect by civic government, always on the quest for bigger, if not better. You can file the impending closing and demolition of the Glen Cairn Arena under that category. The question, though, is what will the residents of Glen Cairn do about it? Will its vaunted spirit rise to the occasion, and how? Well, there are some ideas.
Oh, we got weaknesses. The empty storefronts, the vacancies, no place to shop, no grocery stores. We have one grocery store. If you don't have a car, you get to use that one grocery store. It does its best to serve the community, but if you're way down the bottom of the hill here, it's hard to get to it if you're way over on the other side. The strengths of the community itself, I think, is that they are getting to that point. The residents are engaged, the schools are engaged, businesses are becoming more engaged, wanting to participate with, helping residents.
I think bringing attention to this community is one way for us to do that. Also other things, as far as creating sort of a strong community voice through things like neighborhood associations, through things like business associations, and I think that might help raise the profile a bit in this neighborhood. But I think, again, creating that shared voice happens through bringing community together.
There's no sign that says you are now entering and leaving Glen Cairn. There's no sign or no way for you to know, if you didn't know this, that there's a history that goes back decades and decades. So it's the anonymity of this place, the lack of who they were or what they were before, that it doesn't seem to exist anymore, and yet there's so much here. So for me, to be here, it's the potential of what it can be, the recovery of what it was, the potential of where it could go, but most excitingly for me is that it will be unanticipated by everyone else that drives through it every day and doesn't even know that we're here.
I think Glen Cairn needs a community-based center where we can come together. It's great to see these individual places operating, but we don't have a large gathering place where we could come together as a group of people or have larger based events where we could celebrate together and learn more about each other in one central location.
I think one of the opportunities that it's beautiful here, you know, the parks that we have and the access to the Westminster Ponds, to Meadow Lily, like I think there's a lot of civic pride in this area. I think it's on the rise. I think it's a place that, you know, really cares about what's going on in its neighborhood and is starting to, certainly from what I see, you know, there's a lot of people that are proud to live in the Southeast.
Well, there's a number of things that a municipality can do to help a community. And one of those things is a community improvement plan. It involves getting the community out to decide what it is they want, where they need help. So you'll look at the strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats for a community, and kind of focus on the things that the local residents see as necessary.
I'm looking forward to seeing more people in Glen Cairn come to the table and bring what they have. They might think it's small, they might think it's insignificant, but it's not. Because as a community, we're only going to make things better because our strengths that we have are strengths that others could use. And so everyone has something to bring, and I look forward to seeing a vibrant community where everyone is participating, everyone is engaged, and we're reaching our full potential. And that would be something I just really believe.
Great
answer. Yeah.
It's about the people I meet and the people that live here and the people that step forward and step up and help others or just accept the help from others, right? We're all together in this piece, and it's the people essentially that really are going to drive what happens and when it happens. The timeline to me doesn't matter as long as there's continuous incremental weaving of people together that strengthen what we have here in this community.
Perhaps there's a way to illustrate David's point. In June of 2017, a new playground with an Indigenous peoples theme was opened at C.C. Carruthers Public School. A powwow was held to commemorate the event, and part of that was an intertribal dance. That's a dance in which every member of the audience is invited to participate, and they did. Captured on film that warm, sunny Glen Cairn afternoon was the boundless spirit of this community, a spirit that can rise, not necessarily easily, and certainly not necessarily everyone or all at once, but that spirit can rise and dance again. And when it happens, well, who knows? But it could be awesome.
get it or I'm going to throw it at you.
Come on, you guys, we gotta eat this cake or we can't go home.